Going back to education, in the 1980s, there was a recession in Ireland. At that time, I was living with my Scottish husband and three young children in Dublin. There was no work in the building trade. We decided to move to Scotland to a small town near Glasgow on the west coast. Our fortunes didn't improve, however. After several years, circumstances meant I became a single parent dependent on benefit. As a stay at home mother, I had been involved in the community, serving on various committees and working with play schemes and women's groups in a voluntary capacity. Despite several job interviews in this field, the lack of qualifications meant I was unsuccessful. A conversation with Cindy, a youth worker, gave me some ideas. I've recently graduated from Strathclyde University. The community development course there would suit you. Why don't you make some inquiries? When I phoned about the course, the woman was helpful. However, the length of time since I had left school was against me. You need to obtain two Scottish hires, she advised. I felt totally disheartened. Back to speak to Cindy. I'm busy at the moment. Let's meet tomorrow for a coffee. We sat in Greg's while she explained patiently the steps I would need to take. Don't look too far ahead. Treat this as an experiment. The Vale High School has a class beginning in September for adult returners. English would be a good choice, and modern studies. That is like civics and the welfare state. Smiling, I said I knew about that. With interest, I began my return to education. I enjoyed the English course. The play was The Plough and the Stars by Sean O'Casey. My being from Ireland gave me a boost as I was able to explain the background to the play. Learning to write essays was challenging to say the least. Leaving cert in the 1960s was all about learning by heart. Now it was analyse this, compare and contrast that. A private conversation with the teacher benefited me once I had swallowed my pride. Modern studies was also a challenge. Reading about the welfare state was different to actually experiencing how it operates. We learned about race relations in the US and in Chicago, where my brother was living at the time. I spent all my free time at home studying. I reapplied to the university and was invited to an interview. The atmosphere in the old building was uplifting. I sat in the library, gazing at all the shelves of books. I knew this was the place to be. There were other mature students among the younger ones. To my surprise, I was offered a place for the next academic year, depending on me passing the hires, an incentive to study harder. I'll never forget the August morning when the brown envelope dropped in the door. I got an A in modern studies and a B in English. Roll on September, the first part of the experiment had worked. In our family, going to university was not for us. My path was to secure a job in an office, contribute at home until I got married. Here I was, aged 46 years old, with one child still at home. I hoped all my work would inspire him to stay on at school. I felt overwhelmed at first, having to find my way around the different buildings and different lectures. My fellow students were friendly. Would I be able for the work? Would I have time to study at home? I asked myself these questions constantly. There were days when I just wanted to go home and look for a job in a shop. The women in my study group who had families supported me. We supported each other at different times. Essays, presentations, placements followed. As the weeks rolled on into months, I learned how theory underpins practice. The months passed and my first year was completed. Second year began with more new topics and a placement. That winter, as I walked in the dark to the train, my head was so full of ideas for my next essay that I hardly felt the cold. In the spring, snowdrops grew in the gardens along my route. The essays, presentations, and occasional lunches with friends saw me through second year. I was beginning to enjoy the experience and the experiment by then. Third year meant a long placement out in the community. Mine was with the tenants officer with the local authority. This was my chance to put all the theory into practice. I benefited from my supervisor's faith in me. I planned and facilitated meetings, organised events for International Women's Day and for parents' groups. I also had a dissertation to write. My topic was community development and health. This caused many a sleepless night, but it was worth it in the end. All too soon, June arrived and our graduation day. I felt so proud receiving my parchment in front of my family and friends. That night, many a pint was drunk and enjoyed. Then the third part of the experiment, securing a post in the community. After several job interviews, I was offered a position as a community worker in Glasgow. It was daunting at first. I wanted to create positive experiences for the people I worked amongst and to share my life experiences, strength, and hope. I believe I did that for the time I worked with them. I can say that the three parts of this experiment worked for me. Thank you.